This was a gigantic, surprising way to wake up this morning. Masai Ujiri and the Toronto Raptors have parted ways. That coming from Shams from ESPN. It was a move that you kind of always thought in the back of your mind something could happen, but you weren't ready for it now. He was going into a bit of a lame duck year. He was going to go into the final year of his contract. I'm assuming extension talks didn't go swimmingly, and so now he's gone. It's surprising to me, and I've had a couple hours to kind of digest it here, and it still seems very, very surprising that Masai Ujiri is not the one in charge of the basketball operations for the Toronto Raptors anymore. And the longer you would go with hearing, oh well, the Knicks are interested, the Hawks are interested, the Nets are interested, all these teams want Masai to come in and turn their team around the same way he did with the Raptors. You just, after a while, you would just think like, okay, whatever, heard it before, he's going to be here for forever. And so you just kind of felt like he was always going to be a part of the fabric of this team. And I guess in a bigger overall sense, he certainly will be. But I couldn't imagine it without him. Now, he has been around for so long and just had the hands on the steering wheel for such a long time that it feels strange to not have him be a part of the Raptors at this point. For him, I can't imagine he is going to be out of work very long, even with the Raptors in not the most advantageous position right now. To see the turnaround of this franchise, I think like there are very few organizations that wouldn't want a Masai Ujiri at the head of everything. So this is a big move, I think, not just for the Raptors, but in the NBA as well. The timing of it is surprising. The draft was it just finished, and free agency is just about to start. And I'm sure there are reasons for waiting. I would imagine that there were probably lengthy contract negotiation discussions trying to get everything figured out. And I am sure that there are also timings and everything like that, like with the whole league year thing and everything. But I just find it a little bit surprising that you allow this guy to be the head of a draft and get all of your ducks in a row for free agency, and then he just bails. Like, that just seems weird. Like, at some point, you have to have okay, if negotiations aren't at X by the time we get to this day, then we just have to cut bait and we have to move on with this thing. So I'm sure that there are contract timings and everything like that make this a bit of an uninformed opinion, I suppose, but it still feels like the timing of it is weird. And I don't think Masai was sabotaging things or anything else like that. I still think it was a strange timing on all of this. And the optimistic side of me wants to believe that this shows that Bobby Webster was more in charge of everything. He's going to be staying on, gets an extension. And we always heard like, oh, Masai gets all the credit, but no, it's actually Bobby who's doing a lot of these things. And I wonder now if that is like fully the truth, and that's why the organization was fine to just do this kind of a move with the timing that it is. That is the optimistic view of me. The pessimistic one is maybe they thought they could get it done and they didn't, and they just didn't think it was that big of a deal. So it's the timing of it makes it a very strange move. But looking at the overall, I guess, legacy and impact of Masai Ujiri, first and foremost, he made it cool to be a Raptors fan. Like, Vince Carter was the first who made it cool to be a Raptors fan, although one could argue just the cool logo made that cool. But Vince Carter first put the Raptors on the map. But I would still suggest a little bit, and maybe this is just shifting narratives to fit what I'm talking about today, but I almost think that Vince made it cool to be a Vince fan, and you were then by proxy a Raptor fan with that. Now, I don't think a lot of people followed him to the Nets, so maybe that is a little bit of flawed logic, but Vince made it okay to be a Raptor fan. Masai made it okay to brag about being a Raptor fan. He made it okay to puff your chest out a little bit, like, yeah, my Raptors, that's my team. And he made it cool to have a bit of a swagger as a Raptor fan. Like, look, it didn't work out with how the series went, but the fuck Brooklyn thing was a real, this is different moment. That it really did kind of solidify, like, look, we're not just going to be this basically farm system for the NBA that will give you Vince and will give you Chris Bosh, and we will take on your Jermaine O'Neals so you can get a Roy Hibbert and those sorts of things. We will be the ones to latch on to the contract year of Hedo Turkoglu and have that spectacularly blow up in our faces. That this was now going to be a moment where we are going to be the challenger brand here in the NBA, and we are going to really make you focus on what is happening north of the border. And with that came quite a bit of success. And the story of it is pretty clear. And a little bit funny now in retrospect, because again, it wasn't supposed to be this way. He comes in, they want to start to tear things down, make the Rudy Gay trade. There's a Lowry trade that is about to happen, and just through circumstances, it doesn't. The team starts playing very well, and now you're just kind of with a competitive basketball team, and you have a core that is set that you can build on. And from there, he really did show that you can actually have legitimate success with the Toronto Raptors. It wasn't just going to be like, hey, we're just going to trick people into coming to Toronto, whether it's going to be, and I get like the big one would be the trade, but it isn't just going to be, we're going to trade for a guy that we wouldn't get and then hope that maybe they don't hate it here enough that they want to stick around and actually play basketball, or we're going to draft some people and they just have to stay. There can be a real legitimate plan, and really drawing people into this organization, bringing successful people in, and building a quality organization out of it. So it wasn't just like tricking this team into being successful. He showed that you can actually build a winner, a sustainable winner, with the Toronto Raptors. And he showed the world what the Raptors could be and what Canadian basketball could be. And like, obviously now you have a lot of Canadian talent that is working its way through, and that is coming off of Vince Carter and what he did in the dunk contest, and coming off of Steve Nash and him being the MVP. But now there is going to be an era of basketball fans that grew up on We the North. And so not just for the Raptors, but for Canadian basketball as well, he is instrumental in building this thing up. And I think the main thing that you really look at with Masai is legitimizing this team. Like the Raptors, they had superstars, right? They had playoff runs. Vince in the East semifinal missing the shot against the 76ers. Chris Bosh, and some pretty sustained trips to the postseason. Anyway, quite a few failures in there, but at least some sustained playoff pushes. And then the DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry era leading up to the championship in 19. He legitimized this organization. We're going to talk about where the Raptors are at now and all of that in just a second, but would love you guys to spread the word of Couch Potato Diary, and you can do that by sharing this. If you're watching, hit that share button. Send it out to a few people. Podcast-wise, there is a share episode option. You could do that. Just help spread the word and help us out as we're really trying to grow this thing here at Couch Potato Diary. It is not all positive with Masai, right? I think his competitive spirit kind of hurt where this team is at now. I think he refused to believe that this team needed to give up and that he could figure out a way to build this team back into a winner with what they had. And I think if there was a sober second thought taken, there could have been actually quite a surplus of young talent coming into this organization and starting to peak again, coming off of the title. Obviously 2019 was an amazing time, and we will get to more of that here in a second. But I do think people sometimes forget like how hard this team fought in 2020 with everything that was happening, with Kawhi leaving and everything, to be able to still put out a quality basketball team that was more than competitive. They won 50 games in the East and were into the second round of the playoffs in the bubble before getting eliminated. And so to have that type of a foundation built, it did feel like something you didn't necessarily want to get away from, and I think Masai was hoping that that would allow the team to kind of build off of it. Then they have to be in Tampa for a while, and all of that situation playing out, and then it just slowly trickles away. And so from this championship team, Kawhi leaves for nothing. Lowry, you get a sign and trade, and Goran Dragic comes in. Fred VanVleet is gone for nothing. Gasol's gone for nothing. Ibaka's gone for nothing. And then you are finally stuck with, okay, you kind of have to do something with Siakam and OG Anunoby now. And even still with that, there was a thought, well, we can turn this around. And so they use those assets to try to bring in a few more be competitive in this moment sort of pieces, and it ends up not really working out. So it felt like he was overly confident that he would be able to bring a winner back here. And so obviously it is a bit less success, but it is kind of similar to the Bill Belichick way, where just at some point it stopped working. And at some point it wasn't just, well, I can fix this. I know how to do this. This is the way we did it before, so this is the way we're going to do it again. And it just didn't work. And it's not the most amazing spot. Although, as I've said before, this is a watered down Eastern Conference, and you have a roster of like 10 guys who you feel good about in your rotation. There's no super duper star in there, but like as far as starting fives go, you have a pretty good one in this Eastern Conference. As far as bench units go, it's a very young one, but there's a lot of potential in that. And so this is a Raptor team that does still feel kind of comfortable with where they're at right now. The problem is there isn't a lot of upward mobility in that, and there were a couple of opportunities to maybe tear down a little bit, enhance some draft prospects, and overall be further along as an organization. And it is too bad that it didn't work. And it does feel almost a little bit defeating from a Raptor fan standpoint that Masai put in all of this work, and you get to the highs of a championship and you'll never take that away and all of that. But still, the last couple of things that will be talked about from the Raptors standpoint in the time that Masai was with the Raptors was a kid that looked like he didn't want to come to the Raptors on draft day, and national media in the States basically mocking Toronto for thinking they were going to be big players in free agency and in trades again. And so it does kind of feel like he went in and put all of this work together and got it to some highs that no one thought you really could with this organization. But then when it's at the end, it is basically back to where you were when this whole thing started, where you don't get a lot of attention from the ESPNs and the folks down south. You aren't taken as seriously as a basketball organization, and you still feel like a destination that no one really wants to go to, even though Oklahoma City and Indiana were just in the championship game. So it does feel almost cruelly full circle with Masai in a way that really does kind of sting. That is obviously eliminating a lot of the good that happened, right? Like, and it is like he brought the championship and everything like that. So how will he be remembered for Raptor fans? I think, like, first and foremost, he brought the Raptors a championship. That is it. Period. End of discussion. We can talk about other failings, where they are at now, what they maybe could have done out of it, but he did the unthinkable and turned We the North into We the Champions. I'm based out here in Calgary. I never thought I would be going to a bar in Calgary, Alberta, while it was going insane for a Raptors game. But that's what happened when I was at Home and Away downtown here. It was on 17th at the time. Now it's on 1st. But you have a whole bar going insane when that shot bounces in against the 76ers in Game 7. On a sunny afternoon in Calgary, a bar was packed watching the NBA, and I'm walking along the streets of Calgary with a Morris Peterson jersey, and people are honking and celebrating. I never thought that would happen. I never thought, doing radio out here in Calgary, I would be doing daily updates on the Raptors and only kind of getting made fun of for it, instead of a buzzer and a quick, well, that's your basketball report, having it actually be somewhat taken seriously. I never thought that would happen. I never thought, as a Raptor fan in Calgary, that I would be watching outside on a giant video board with food trucks everywhere, because we have our own Jurassic Park, watching as the team comes one shot away from winning a championship in Game 5. I never thought that we would hear the national guys talking about Siakam, Lowry, VanVleet, Norm Powell, Nick Nurse, all of those guys. Like, you never thought that would be possible, and you never thought a championship would be possible for the Toronto Raptors. But they're champions forever. This organization at least has one championship banner hanging in the Raptors, the Raptors rafters, and that's how Masai will be remembered. When you look at the most important people in Raptors history, it's Vince, because he put this team on the map at a time where, the other Canadian team was not doing so hot. You probably have to put Lowry in there, but you can make a case. Like, Masai is at least on the Mount Rushmore for most important people in Raptor history, and you could make a very compelling case that he should be one, or at the very least, number two with this organization. And now he's gone. So it is a new chapter in Toronto. And I think the timing of that actually does make a lot of sense, but it doesn't change the fact that this was a giant with an organization that never thought they could reach the heights that it got to, and he never thought that they couldn't. And that was the big difference with Masai Ujiri with the Raptors. New episodes of Couch Potato Diary are going to be dropping all week, every week, as we continue to build this thing here. So make sure you find it over on Spotify or on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts.